Thanks. I think we can start the meeting. It is being recorded. Um, so here we go. Ooh, why isn't this working? There we go. Okay, my name is Heather Altman. I'd like to introduce myself. I am the principal of Altman Environmental Consulting. I'd like to welcome you this evening. We are here to discuss the Southern Los Cerritos Wetlands Restoration Project. This is the fourth public meeting for the project, the first public meeting for this iteration of the project. I am the public engagement coordinator for the LCWA. Just to remind everyone, this meeting is being recorded and it will be posted on the LCWA website subsequently. Do quick introductions with me today. I have Shelby Bisaccio and Amanda Hedgecock. They are monitoring the chat room, and I will let them introduce themselves during the question portion of the presentation. Also in attendance, we have some representatives from the agencies. I see that Chad Oberly is here from the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy. He is the LCWA project manager for the project. I don't see her here yet, but I know she will be here, and I could also just be missing her name. But Sally G will be with us from the California State Coastal Conservancy. There are also several consultants with us. We have Tidal Influence and Moffett Nickel and MIG, all of whom I will discuss a little bit deeper in this presentation when we get to their role. So we got a full house here today. I would like to go over some ground rules. Just keep your phone or computer on mute if you could. We will have several opportunities during this presentation to offer comment. So when we get to those locations, either raise your hand and we'll call on you. And at that time, you can unmute, ask your question. But outside of that, if you can keep it on mute, that'd be great. If you don't want to speak, but you do have something that you want to share, either a comment or a question, please feel free to type it in the chat box. Shelby and Amanda will be reading aloud those things that have been typed in. And last, but certainly not least, please be respectful. Okay, so this is the agenda for today's Zoom. We will be discussing the historical ecology of the site, looking at the past, discussing current site conditions or the present, and the future, the restoration project, really what we're here to discuss today. Then we're going to do a little visioning exercise for one of the subject parcels. And then lastly, we'll go over some ways to get informed and stay informed. So, starting with the past, before I begin, I would like to give a shout out to Eldorado Audubon has, just great birders and photographers. These photos are used with permission from Cindy Crawford. In fact, most of the bird photos here are from Cindy. Just going clockwise, starting up in the top left, those are some ducks. That's a great horned owls, turkey vulture, double-crested cormorant, northern red bishop, and the snowy egret. The great horned owls were taken, she said, from Gum Grove Park, which abuts the project area, and the balance were taken from other places in the wetlands. So, to begin with the past. So what you see here is a historical topographic map from about 130 years ago. And this shows the Alamitos Bay watershed, which was about a 2,400 acre area. To give you some context, if you could see my hand, the cursor here, it's in the middle of the screen right above the words Alamitos Bay. This here is today the Colorado Lagoon. And then if you go just south, you've got Belmont Shore. And then if you move east, you've got Naples. Then this black dashed line here is the county line, LA County up top, Orange County on the bottom. And then you have Seal Beach just on the border of Orange County. And that is also where the project area is. So These were the habitats as mapped also in the late 1800s. The U.S. Coast Survey created very detailed maps of the country's coastlines. And what you see here is this approximately 2,400 acre area that was primarily vegetated wetlands, this darker green color. There was also this lighter green color, which is the intertidal flat. And then these blue areas are the subtidal, which is water throughout, and that's the navy blue things that you see there. So you can tell that there was a lot of the vegetated wetlands back in the day. And if you juxtapose the historic habitats with the wetlands boundaries today, you can see quite a difference. This red dashed line here on the right, that is the current boundary of the Los Cerritos Wetlands, and it's about 500 acres. So you can see there's been quite a contraction from that 2,400 acres down to the 500 that we have now. And really, why should we care, right? What does it matter? So we have less wetlands. Well, wetlands have a lot of benefits. They're good. They're home to many special status species, and they're habitats for migrating birds. The Los Cerritos Wetlands are on the Pacific Flyway, which is a major migratory corridor north to south. They also act as water purifiers. They absorb pollutants and they filter sediment. They offer passive recreation experiences. You can bird watch, you can go walking, photography, and they're also great classrooms. You can learn ecological and cultural lessons. So wetlands are good, and we should be looking out for the ones that we have. So fortunately, an agency was formed in 2006 to do just that, to look out for those Los Cerritos wetlands. And the Los Cerritos Wetlands Authority was created. They're also referred to more commonly as the LCWA. They are a legally created authority comprised of 4 agencies: the City of Seal Beach, the City of Long Beach, the California State Coastal Conservancy, and the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy. The LCWA, they can own property, they can implement restoration, and they can also manage the land. They also maintain an active stewardship program, and we'll get into that a little bit deeper in the presentation. So this is the LCWA's jurisdictional boundary. Like I said, it's approximately 500 acres. Of those 500 acres, 342 acres are public and 158 are private. Now, of those public acres, the LCWA owns 243. So they own almost half of the wetlands, which is great because when they were founded in 2006, they owned exactly 0 acres. So we're seeing a movement of wetlands into public ownership, which is great, and it helps facilitate some restoration that we're starting to see happen now. So in addition to gobbling up property, the LCWA has conducted several planning and/or analysis exercises. Starting in 2011, they initiated the Conceptual Los Cerritos Wetlands Restoration Plan. And what that did, it looked at basically different opportunities and constraints for wetlands restoration, came up with some conceptual alternatives, and produced a conceptual restoration plan. The LCWA board approved this in August 2015. Then the LCWA pivoted to a more technical process, the super fun and exciting environmental analysis process of CEQA, or the California Environmental Quality Act. And for this, they produced a program EIR. And that was a parent analysis document that looked at and analyzed at a high level the restoration scenarios for the Los Cerritos Wetlands Complex. That document was certified in January of 2021. Subsequent to that, and the intention of that document was to provide that program EIR, was to provide that umbrella analysis the umbrella analysis document. And then when individual specific restoration projects advanced, that analysis for that specific project would tear off of the program EIR. And that's what happened next. The Southern Los Cerritos Wetlands Restoration Project had a mitigated negative declaration, which is a kind of analysis document. And it's this project that we're here to discuss today. So the analysis for this project was approved by the LCWA, or certified by the LCWA rather, in August of 2023. Now, throughout all of these planning processes, and I think this is a really good thing, but what the LCWA did, they convened what's called a Technical Advisory Committee, or often referred to as a TAC. And this TAC is comprised of just a laundry list, all of these agencies that you see here on the screen, a laundry list of agencies. And what the LCWA would do throughout each of these processes, they would meet with and convene and have meetings, and they would present where the project was at that time, get some feedback from the agencies, and revise as appropriate. So it was a very iterative, constant touching base between the LCWA and these agencies. And also the agencies were added over time. And most recently, the Tribal Advisory Group was added to the Technical Advisory Committee. And we'll get into the Tribal Advisory Group a little bit later on in the project. So that kind of sums up the past. It was kind of a quick look back at how we got to where we are. So this is our first opportunity for comments. So Amanda, if memory serves, I think you were going to handle the first segment. So Amanda, are there any comments or questions that have been entered into the chat? If you can unmute yourself and let me know.
Good evening, everyone. Like Heather said, my name is Amanda. I'm happy to read off any questions you may have for Heather, so feel free to post them up in the chat if you do happen to have some.
So I guess there are none. That's good.
Heather, as of now, we have none.
Perfect. And also, if you don't want to put them in the chat, again, you can raise your hands and we will call on you, but I also don't see any hands either. So we will carry on.
Heather, I'm actually getting one question right now from Lorenz. He'd
Okay.
like to know, where do the mice and rodent go to?
Where do they go to? I'm not sure how to answer that question, except to say that the entire Los Cerritos Wetlands area is habitat. And so there's nothing precluding or prohibiting species from moving from one parcel to another, except maybe like a road. They're not maybe not cross a road. So as far as where they go, I'm really not sure.
Heather, he'd like to add the comment that he does live on the back of the property and is wondering about them coming to the house near his home.
His home, yeah, I could. There are, absent a barrier, I would think that yes, there might be some wildlife that roams from the property into some of the neighboring properties. Um, I don't know that that will cease. This isn't a project that is, looking to eradicate species, certainly. Um,
Hey Heather, I'm happy to
yeah, thanks, Eric.
provide some insight.
Yeah.
My name is Eric Zahn. I'm one of the restoration ecologists working on this project, and we actually, as part of the planning effort, have done a variety of mammal studies. And in fact, the LCWA has been partnering with the CSULB Mammal Lab for, gosh, about the past 7 or 8 years, and had a number of master's students study the mammals from the smallest mouse to the largest coyote. And we've learned a lot about the mammal populations out there. And just, like any neighborhood, we have the basic mammals that you might find in a domestic setting, but then we have a variety of other mammals that utilize the natural habitat. What I expect that we'll see as we start to improve this land is that we're going to create better habitat for all these mammals, and we should see their populations improving and hopefully staying in the habitat areas and not in the neighborhoods. But for our neighbors who may be attending that live in the vicinity, it is often recommended in general, but especially living next to an open space area, to limit the amount of attractive things that may bring mammals to your site. So put your cat food away, keep your trash closed, and other basic things like that.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. Amanda, was there any follow-up comments or questions in the
looks
chat?
like we do have a hand raised by Carlene. Carlene, I'll go ahead and unmute you. One moment. Or actually, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, Carlene, feel free.
There you are.
Hi, I grew up on a house on the hill, and I still have it up there. I watched, it was a verdant area when I was a small child, and I used to wander around down in there. But they pumped feet of silt down into that area. In soil testing, is that going to be safe for the animals that are going to be in that area if the water is restored to it? And where is the water going to come from? Are they going to use the Anaheim River? And I'm sorry, I'm probably not stating this very well because I haven't been around for a while, but it was just a white mass. And then they started dump trucks with large blocks of cement and everything else.
Yeah, this is actually a really good question, and we are going to get into some of the, well, contamination issues or situation with the project site actually coming up. So why don't we do this? I will go through the next slides. And then if I haven't answered your question in those slides, we can loop back. But I do think that some of those historic uses will present in the next section, which talks about some of the existing conditions. Barb, I see you have your hand raised. Do you have a question or comment you want to share? Go ahead. Barb, do you want to talk?
Barb, I believe you're on mute.
Got it unmuted there. I'm driving.
There you go. Good job.
Okay. I just have a concern about I feel in some of the CEQA documents, et cetera, hasn't really been adequately addressed for the animal population as well as the human population adjacent to the wetlands. And that is the issue of noise pollution. And I think there are three primarily important factors that need to be addressed. One is the AES, the new plant that they built, and the cooling system quite frequently is above the commissioning decibel limits. And they also promote, especially at night, it's very noticeable, a distinctive harmonic vibration. And of course, that animals being sensitive, that's really stressful on them. And for those of us that live within ear range of that, it's pretty annoying. And one thing in the commissioning documents, they only looked at the impact on Leisure World and the houses sort of there adjacent to the AES plant on Studebaker. And the California Regulatory Agency has told me that it really didn't extend into the Seal Beach community, the impact of the AES site. And also, it's interesting, there was basically a sister plant like that built in Huntington Beach, and they put in a very extensive buffer system to mitigate that noise pollution there, but it was not done on the Long Beach property. And I just wondered if there's possibly, with the development of the wetlands, could there be an installation of one of those buffers so it would mitigate the noise from AEF? The second noise issue is moving the oil extraction to the old pumpkin patch site. And that is very adjacent again to the development area you're speaking about, as well as people living in the hill section of Seal Beach, the Bridgeport community, and the large apartment complex off of PCH. So I just wonder how the noise from that, I heard from the city of Long Beach once I inquired, and they said it's going to be basically a 60 decibel limit, which is pretty loud, and the impact, especially with the prevailing winds moving into the Steel Beach area, it would really exacerbate the noise issue. And the third noise issue is the second and PCH project. It's basically along PCH, one giant cement wall. And since they built that before, I'm not right adjacent to the wetlands, but I live in the hill area. And the noise from the PCH traffic bounces off of that, and we have a lot more noise in the community, especially during rush hour, because that hits up against that cement wall that's basically a couple blocks long and then just kicks it back into the wetlands area and into the hill section of Steel Beach. So those are three noise issues that I think have not been adequately addressed if the wetlands are going to be developed, because it's going to impact the animal population, the bird population, and those of us that are humans living in there. It's really decreased quality of life for us.
Yeah, don't mute yourself because I do have a follow-up question. Thank you. So when you spoke of the AES and you talked about the commissioning documents, are you talking about through the specific CEC process? Or is that what you mean when you say the commissioning documents?
Yes, the documents that the state regulatory agency put through the limits on decibel that they can emit. Many times at night I've clocked it and it's like upwards of 65, 70, and I'm about a mile away from the plant. Along with the harmonic vibration, I don't have a way to measure that, but it's very disturbing, especially when it's quiet at night.
Yeah.
I think about the animals living right with that and how they're much more sensitive than we are.
Yeah, no, I understand. Noise pollution is no joke. So as far as those two, well, technically, I think maybe three other projects, the AES, the Synergy project with the drilling on the pumpkin patch, and then with the existing second PCH project, all of those individual exercises, approval processes for those had their own noise analysis and mitigation applied relative to that. So we as the LCWA can't really do anything to impact or influence those other projects and those approval processes. What I can tell you for this project, there has been noise studies done, both for construction and during construction and operation. Of course, during operation of the Los Cerritos Wetlands, once it's restored, that noise is going to be effectively zero, right? However, construction, there probably will be noise impacts. I know that there is the prior analysis document for this, the mitigated negative declaration, looked at noise mitigations and how to try and mitigate those potential noise impacts during the construction period. So I recognize that construction noise is not fun. I have a neighbor who's doing some construction right now and it's driving me nuts. So I sympathize with that. But I do know that the mitigations applied for this project during construction should serve to reduce that potential construction noise impact. And then again, once operationally, there should be really no long-term noise associated with this project. But the three that you mentioned, the existing second and PCH, the oil drilling on the pumpkin patch and AES, those are outside of the LCWA's jurisdiction. So there's not a whole lot that can be done there. But I do encourage you to communicate, at least in the case with AES, with the CEC, see if there's something that they can do about some noise concerns you have, and then with the city of Long Beach for those two projects outside of the CEC's jurisdiction. But I think that we'll move on now.
It looks like we do have one more question.
Okay, we'll do the one question and then we'll bounce to the next section. So who, is it a comment or is it a hand?
It's going to be a comment. This one is from Elaine Weiss.
Okay.
She's asking, is SB 1173 going to make it no longer possible to move oil drilling operations to the pumpkin patch? And if so, how will that impact the development of Los Cerritos Wetlands?
That is a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. I know that there is no oil drilling associated with this project, though there is a history of oil drilling on site, historic oil drilling. There are no current wells on site. So oil drilling is not a part of this project. How other existing oil operations or proposed operations have to deal with SB 1173, that remains to be seen. And I don't know about that. So those are all very good questions. Thank you, Amanda. Now we are going to move to the next section. We're going to be talking about the present, what's going on there now. So this is that familiar red hatched boundary, the LCWA project boundary, 500 acres. And then down here in the south, you see this blue. That is the Southern Los Cerritos Wetlands Restoration Project boundary. It is 103.5, so approximately 20% of the LCWA's Los Cerritos Wetlands area. So it's a good chunk. This is the project boundary zoomed in. Just for some context, if you kind of follow my cursor hand up in the top right left corner, starting there, we have this here is the San Gabriel River. Next to it is the Haynes Cooling Channel. Then just north of the project boundary, you have existing oil operations, the Hellman family. Off to the right or the east, you've got, well, you can kind of see portions of it, Heron Point. And then down here is the hill. Right immediately under the project boundary is Gum Grove Park. And then off to the west, you have Pacific Coast Highway. And then this right here is First Street. And that's kind of how you access the site off First Street. The project boundary is comprised of two parcels. The one you see from the street as you drive down PCH is the State Lands Commission parcel. It's this 3.5 acre front piece. There are some tidal wetlands in the northern portion of the property where a culvert connects to the San Gabriel River. And that is the answer to the question a few minutes ago of how is water getting on the property. There is that existing culvert right here connecting to the San Gabriel River, and water comes in through the historic Hellman Channel and then throughout the balance of the site. So that's where the water comes from. So that's one answer to an earlier question. There's also a concrete pad on this site, and the balance of the site has, just cracked asphalt, invasives. There are some southern tar plant that is a sensitive species in portions of that site. The LCWA also maintains a lease where they implement their stewardship program on this site. The balance of the property, the 100 acres, is owned by the LCWA. And like I said, there is access to it off First Street. There's a gate here, so you can't just go onto the property now. As I mentioned, the site was formerly used for oil pumping, and it contains multiple former sumps, and we'll get into that in a minute. And certain areas of contamination from those prior oil operations. There are some areas of tidal southern coastal salt marsh which persist on site, but a lot of it was converted by prior landowners. And as you can see, there's some access roads that serviced the former oil operations. So along First Street, there are 3 easements. One, there is an easement to the city of Seal Beach. They maintain the water line. There is also a transmission line that runs along First Street. So Southern California Edison maintains an easement to maintain that, or has an easement to maintain that line. And then lastly, the Hellman family, the oil drilling up here, they have an easement along First Street for ingress and egress to their property. So those are 3 easements which exist along First Street. contamination, and this could answer some of the earlier question. So I mentioned that there were prior oil activities on this site, and that's certainly true. And back in the day, when they used to drill, they would take the things that came up the hole, the cuttings and things of that nature, and just dump them right on the ground into what was called a sump. And so there are 12 sumps on site. 5 of those sumps require removal. And for that removal, material will be stockpiled on site. It will be tested and then hauled to the appropriate landfill. At present, it's believed that there are relatively low levels of contamination in these sumps that need to be removed. So that material can go to a standard landfill and not one of the landfills like Kettleman, which is where you take, particularly hazardous materials. The balance of the sumps can remain on site, and they will be buried by 1 foot of clean soil. So these are the current habitats that exist there now. You can see that there is a lot of this olive green that is upland, and it's approximately 2/3 of the site. It's a 103.5 acre site. There's about 66 acres of upland. It's a lot of non-native upland, and it's infested with a lot of invasive species, so that's not good. Most of the balance of the site is that fluorescent green, which is muted tidal salt marsh. It's about 29 acres. The navy blue areas are salt flat. That's about 3 acres. The pale blue, that's water. That's subtidal areas. That's about 1.6 acres. And then you see these grayish, I guess, maybe areas. Those are developed roads, that cement pad I referenced a little bit ago. There are 3 special status plant species. There's the Lewis's evening primrose. There's a couple of occurrences, those about 3.76 acres. And these are pictures of those representative species. The California boxthorn, there's 2 individuals on site. And then the southern tar plant, there's numerous occurrences totaling a little over 1 acre. There are also 7 special status bird species. There's 4 on this slide. There's 3 on the next. Loggerhead shrike, American peregrine falcon, the California brown pelican, and the California least tern. Also have the yellow-breasted chat, osprey, and Belding savanna sparrow. Of note, of these 7 species, the Belding savanna sparrow is the species for which there were breeding pairs observed. There's 25 breeding pairs, and in fact, this project proposes to increase Belding habitat from 21 acres to approximately 56 acres. So that's a good thing for that little sparrow. In addition to being very biologically sensitive, it's also very culturally sensitive. The entire Los Cerritos Wetlands complex, it's located between the archaeological manifestations of Pavungna, which is about 3/4 miles north of the LCWA boundary, generally Cal State Long Beach, and then the archaeological manifestation, the Machuchengna village sites, and that's immediately east of the project site. Now, recognizing that there was significant cultural history associated with the wetlands, the LCWA commissioned a tribal cultural landscape study. And the results of that study recommended eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places as a traditional cultural property, or TCP. The LCWA also convened a tribal advisory group, or a TAG. That TAG consists of 5 tribes, and there's 2 additional advisors. They meet regularly, about quarterly. The first meeting was held in May 2021, and these meetings are very important for the LCWA to get a good understanding of the history of the site and also what is important to the tribes to incorporate into the restoration project, because this is their land too. So that brings us basically through the present. If I didn't answer the questions about contamination and where the water's coming from, I can give it another run. But Shelby, are there any? I think it's Shelby. I think you're the
Yes.
one doing this segment. Shelby, are
Yes.
there any comments in the chat?
Hi, my name is Shelby, and I will be assisting with this portion of the questions. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please let us know. And as of right now, I do not see any questions,
Ooh,
and no one has their hand raised.
give it a minute because this is when they started coming in last time. But I think we're sounds like I've answered Carlene's question. That's good. Okay, well, I will move on. Oh, there we go.
Oh.
Ann Cantrell. Oh, we see you, Ann.
Thank you. I have a couple of comments. One is that even though there is a lot of non-native and invasive plants in the current wetlands, there is also a lot of birds and other the mammals, every all the wildlife is able to
They're
find
using it
food
now. Yeah.
and have shelter there.
Mhm.
They are not concerned about whether a plant is native or not. Most of them have adapted to the non-natives. My other comment is that the Native Americans were in the wetlands all the way from Cal State Long Beach to the ocean. And to say that that Pavunga or that the tribes were outside of this wetlands restoration area is not correct. In fact, there were burials found right up on the eastern portion of the
Yeah.
property.
Yeah. And thank you for those. If I implied or stated that the wetlands themselves were not culturally or tribally significant, I certainly misspoke because they are very culturally and tribally significant. And that is very true. I mean, there are artifacts that have been found on site. So it is known and understood that the Los Cerritos Wetlands was an area historically used by the tribes. And that's true of a lot of wetlands areas, right? Los Cerritos is certainly no different. So if I said something that inferred that the Los Cerritos wetlands are not culturally significant, that was certainly a misstatement on my part, and I apologize because that is absolutely not the intention. That is definitely understood, and that is something that the LCWA is learning, certainly, in their meetings with the tribal advisory group. They're continuing to learn about the history of the site. So thank you for those comments. And we do understand that there are species that are using the site currently, right? Including sensitive species. So every effort will be made to protect those species. Also, this project will increase habitats for a lot of these species that use the wetlands now. So thank you for those comments. Shelby, was there anything else? Did anyone else have a hand raised or drop
I do
something in the
not.
chat?
No,
Okay.
at the moment, I do not see any questions or hand raised.
Hey,
Cool.
hey
Thank
Heather,
you.
can I
Yep.
provide a little extra color on the environmental compliance process for this project?
For it, Eric, color it up.
All right, great. Yeah, so definitely the biological resources and cultural resources are two of our most critical resources to avoid and minimize impacts to. And so the Los Cerritos Wetlands Authority throughout the project, we'll have biological monitors on site during any construction activities to make sure that even species that are not considered to be special status species are being respected as the project is proceeding. And during any ground disturbance, the authority will also have archaeological monitor and a tribal monitor in the instance that there are any potential sensitive cultural or tribal cultural resources that are found. And I think one of the important aspects of how the authority is approaching this project is that it is phased. As Heather mentioned, there's a phase one that will be approximately half of the project, and then there'll be so many years later, 5 to 10 years later, a phase two. And I think that's really important because this is a remaining open space that not all of it is impacted all at once. And an initial phase will occur, and that will allow wildlife to move to undisturbed areas while the restoration is recovering, and then they can move into those restored areas while the second phase is occurring. So those are very good points, and I appreciate your input.
Thank you for the color, Eric. That was good. Okay, so now we will move on to the future. This is why you guys are all here, right? You know, I made you suffer through all of this history and existing conditions. And now we're getting to the good stuff, the future. What is this restoration project about? What are we doing here? So, late last year, the LCWA received approximately $32.5 million from the Coastal Conservancy, the Ocean Protection Council, and AES. This is a significant amount of funding. What on earth are we going to be doing with it? So, this is the scope of work. When I mentioned previously that there were those three separate planning or analysis processes, that last document I mentioned was the analysis document for this project. At that time, the project was at the 65% design phase. So it was designed up to about 65%. So this scope of work finishes that design. You're producing the 90% and then 100% construction design plans. Then we're also going to finalize all of the permits. So the analysis has been completed. The CEQA has been completed. We're going to obtain and finalize the permits. Then we're going to implement phase one restoration, do the work, get our hands dirty. And throughout this entire process, we will be conducting public outreach. So, who's doing this? Starting at the top, we have the Los Cerritos Wetlands Authority Board of Directors. These are if you go to the LCWA quarterly meetings, these are the 4 individuals who take votes and make decisions for the project. That's the board of directors. They're informed by the steering committee, which are a member of each of the representative agencies, the technical advisory committee, which is that laundry list of agencies I mentioned a while ago, the tribal advisory group, which I mentioned just a little bit ago. They all inform the board of directors. Underneath that is a layer of consultants. You have the project management, and we have heard already from the LCWA's project manager for this project. It is Eric Zahn of Tidal Influence. He and his team of restoration ecologists at Tidal Influence are doing the project management and the restoration ecology. Some of the other groups who are involved, Moffett and Nickel is doing the engineering design and the hydrologic modeling and things like that. They were actually the group that produced the project up to that 65% design. So this represents a continuation or finishing what was started. So there's a continuity there that's really good. They're also doing the permitting and the CEQA. We have also MIG, MIG. They are doing the landscape design, and just some of the things I've seen are just really quite cool. Tribal engagement, Cogstone is doing some of the monitoring there. And then community engagement, yours truly. That is me, and you have Shelby and Amanda helping out with that. We have a variety of events planned, and you will be seeing myself or Shelby and Amanda at each of them. So you'll be getting to know us throughout the process. So, and this is kind of what Eric was talking about. This project is implemented in 2 phases. This scope of work implements phase 1. Phase 1 is approximately, it's this top bit here, that brownish, oranges, I don't know what it is, approximately 54.5 acres. It focuses on using the existing tidal connection to the San Gabriel River to enhance existing salt marsh habitat. The second phase, phase 2, is approximately 49 acres, and that will focus on connecting to the Haynes cooling channel, that there, to bring water back to the southernmost reaches of the site, all the way back here. So these are the proposed habitats for phase 1. As I mentioned, the biggest focus is on expanding salt marsh habitat, and this increases by approximately 6.8 acres overall and reduces the upland coverage. There will be restored uplands, though, mostly coastal sage scrub. Some of that salt flat turns into salt pan. That's done by adding tidal flow. There are some developed areas that remain. There's that pad and then some of the roads. And then you see this pink here, right along there. That is transitional wetlands. And basically what that is, those are between wetland and upland habitats. And that allows for the upslope migration of wetlands due to sea level rise. So now I'm going to take the restoration project and just kind of break it up into bits, give some aspects of what we're doing here. So I mentioned that there was sumps from prior oil activities and some legacy contamination. Well, that's got to go. Last thing anyone wants to do is keep some contamination, areas of contamination there that shouldn't be there. Water comes in and it spreads it throughout the site. No one wants that. So the contamination that exists will be remediated. There will also be construction of a perimeter berm, which would then constitute a public access trail. First Street, this street that runs kind of perpendicular, not perpendicular, at an angle through the site, will be raised. And that basically gets raised to the height of the perimeter berm. So First Street effectively rolls into the berm, basically. And a feature that I'm actually really excited about if we can swing this, because I think it would make just such a noticeable improvement in the area, immediately obvious improvement in the area, is undergrounding the utility lines, the transmission line. If that current above ground transmission line can get buried, that would make such a difference in the overall restoration picture. So the LCWA is currently in discussions with Southern California Edison to try and make that happen. So that's a really good thing. Couple of other things that are going to be done. Again, there is the existing connection. The tidal connection is the existing culvert. It goes underneath the Haynes cooling channel into the San Gabriel River. That tidal connection, the existing culvert, is going to get cleaned out and then extended 5 feet into the property. And what that does, it allows for flood protection. The project also keeps, or the restoration keeps, the existing Hellman channel intact. Excuse me, and then improves the hydrology and extends off of it. So what is being done right now? They're in the process of basically fine-tuning things, figuring out widths and slopes and things like that. So that's part of this getting to the final design, is figuring out exactly what things are going to look like. And then off of that the Hellman channel, grading sinuous tidal channels, as you see here. So to the extent that we can remove roads, we will. There is this road here, which is not needed. So that will be removed, minor grading to remove that road. And then, because the intention is to increase tidal salt marsh habitat, you may recall that there were greater areas of the olive drab green than what present here. And that those areas of that olive drab green uplands have been replaced or will be replaced with tidal salt marsh with mounds and depressions like you see there. So when is this all happening? When can we get this ball rolling? So right now we're at December 24th. The 90% design was just completed. The consultants have finished hyperventilating. They had to get that in last week, I think. Anyway, 90% design is under review. The 100% design is anticipated in May of next year, looking at selecting a contractor to go out and actually do the work in about June or July. And then restoration of this phase one would start in September of 2025. So less than a year from now, we could be starting a major restoration project. So this is all good news. And then that restoration process is expected to take about 18 months and is expected to conclude in May of 27. So, questions, and I think Amanda, now it's you. Are there any comments in the chat room or any hands raised?
At this point, I do not see any questions in the chat, but like you said, as we know, we'll wait a few minutes to see if any filter through.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a really exciting project, and it's kind of hard to believe that we're this close to starting a restoration, but we are. It's a good thing. Oh, I see Barb.
Looks like Barb. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. Go for it, Barb.
I was just wondering, like down at Newport, where they have like a really informative information center, is there going to be any of that incorporated into this initial design, or will that come later so people can sort of understand the importance of wetlands and the ecosystem?
A very timely question, because the next section we're going to be doing a visioning exercise for that state lands parcel, which is the site of a visitors plaza. So yes, this project will include opportunities for education, be it the incorporation of signage or, educational areas, things like that. So the quick answer to your question is yes. However, in this next tranche of slides, we can talk about some features that could go on site. So I will say yes, and then with the question mark, because we'll get to that. Does anyone else have any? Barb, if I didn't answer your question, I can make another run. Or does anyone else have any questions?
It looks like for now, we may be able to continue on.
Oh, okay. Now we're going to move over to some visioning. So this is the state lands parcel. Again, that's what you can see from the street as you're driving down PCH. This parcel actually has a pretty storied history. It was the site of the airport club. That closed in 1954, and then Marina Palace was there, and that closed in 1974. And what you see here, where the cursor is kind of in the middle of the screen, this is the remnant building foundation. And it's big, it's massive. It's actually 0.83 acres. So it's a pretty big space. And you can also kind of make out there is currently an existing pathway, I guess you'd call it, here off First Street. There's a gate here, an access gate here where my cursor is off First Street. And then this existing path kind of, it's like a backwards S, I guess, kind of loops through the site and goes to the other side. And there's another access gate there. So that prior analysis document, what it contemplated for this site was called a stewardship site or a stewardship place. And it wasn't a physical building that was contemplated, rather a place where stewardship and education opportunities could take place. And that mitigated neg deck also contemplated a public access trail connection from the San Gabriel River. So now I'm going to run through some existing conditions of the site because I live in Southeast Long Beach and I must have driven by this property. Oh God, I've lived here 20 plus years, 1,000 times. And I don't think it's ever looked very nice. But as soon as I got on site, I was just struck by how different it was on site versus when I was driving by. So I want to share some existing conditions photos with you. This is that, remember I told you there was that kind of backwards S sloping trail. These are pictures of that. You can see it's got some degraded asphalt. It's not ADA compliant. And this runs through the property. This is that pad. Now, admittedly, a substantial part of the problem with this site is you've got a lot of, palm fronds and some detritus, which aren't helping make it look very nice. But if you can look past that, this is just really a massive cement slab that's just got a ton of possibilities, really. And it's got this nice ramp up to it, which is also nice for ADA compliance. This is, I stood at one end of the pad and took a picture, then walked to the other side, turned around and took a picture. So this is basically the entirety of that pad. It's large. And there are a lot of design variables to consider when designing, well, this site or really any site. You've got cost issues to contend with, both during construction and also operation and maintenance. Paramount is protection of sensitive habitats. We're not looking to harm habitats to create habitats, ADA compliance, site security, and also public opinion. We want to try and give people what they want to see for that site. So what we've done, I have some pictures here, or just some examples, some example features. There can be like signage here. There's this in the middle here is a decomposed granite trail with, I guess you could call it fencing, but it's just, wood logs designed to keep people on the path. There are some opportunities here to look at birds, amphitheater type seating for a gathering space, tables and benches for educational centers. And then, just kind of big funky wood things that you could sit on using natural materials. So there's a lot of materials to consider. Do you want to see something more wood? Do you want to see something more cement? Do you want to see nothing at all? How do you want to see your trail surfaced, or do you not want to see a trail there at all? There's lots of factors and things to consider. So what we've done, I have created an online survey. It's a multiple choice. It's 10 questions. It'll take maybe 5 minutes, 10, certainly less than 10 minutes. I'd say 5 to 7. And it throws out a bunch of different pictures and asks you, hey, what do you think of this? Do you like this? Do you not like this? And basically, we're going to take these results and then work with these as we finish off the design. So the survey is obviously accessible here via this link. The survey link is also on the LCWA website. And then subsequent to this meeting, we will also be sending out an email, and the survey link will be in that as well. So, are there any questions on the visioning?
Taking a look at the moment, and currently there's no questions or hand raised, but we'll give it a couple minutes.
Yep. Excellent. You guys are nailing this. Understanding this is great. Oh, Barb, here you go.
We have one from William. Oh, I'm sorry. I do see a hand raised from Barb and then a question from William Nash.
Okay, is the question from William Nash in the chat?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and read that first, and then we'll hop to Barb.
William would just like to know if you can put the survey in the chat.
Survey link in the chat? Yes, I will.
Okay.
Now I got to find the survey link. Yes, we will do that. Okay, Barb, can you unmute? You have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, with that visitor center you mentioned there on First and PCH, like, how many parking spaces do you envision that development there will have?
Uh, I don't know that the number of spaces has been determined, but the parking situation is looking like it would be along First Street. First Street's actually it's wide, wider than maybe I think you would expect, or at least that I expected. And there's also room off to the side of the drivable area for parking. So that is where parking is contemplated. As far as how many spaces would be required or available, that's currently in process. They're determining that now.
Hey Heather,
Yep.
this is Eric Zahn again.
Yep.
We currently actually use this location for parking for all of the LCWA stewardship programs. We fit about 50 cars when they park correctly in that location. And the reason that we don't know what parking will look like is we are having to adjust the location of the electric gate that enters into the property because we're changing the elevations of the road. So once we pinpoint exactly what that electric gate will be, we'll know the number of parking spots, but it'll probably be around 30 to 40. One of the things that will also be coming as part of this is we will be making things ADA compliant. So there will be actually parking that will allow for all abilities to get out of their car and access compliant pathways to get on to these trails. So it will be a big change. And I do want to also address the approach with the visitor amenities on the state lands parcel. The program EIR actually allowed and analyzed for it to be a quote unquote visitor center, like an actual building built on that site. The authority, after that process, decided that that wasn't what they wanted to do. They didn't want to build a building and to do a development that wasn't nature based. And one of the big reasons for that, besides building a building to celebrate nature for nature's sake, is because there's actually plans for a visitor center on a different portion of Los Cerritos Wetlands as part of the Upper Los Cerritos Wetlands restoration project. So the private entity that is pursuing that will actually make their building available to the authority to create office space and a visitor center. So we don't need two visitor centers for each of the cities of Los Cerritos Wetlands. We'll have one in the aforementioned Upper Los Cerritos Wetlands area, and then this will be a visitors plaza, so an outdoor arena for interpretation and education opportunities.
Yeah, that's good clarification. Thank you, Eric. Are there any other?
There are no more questions at the moment.
Oh, thanks, Shelby.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're going to move to how to get informed, how to stay informed. And I see that the survey link was dropped in the chat. Thank you guys for doing that. While Eric was talking, I was looking for that, went to put it in there and saw it was already there. So thank you. You beat me to it. Okay, how to get informed. So as part of this process, we're going to have numerous community events. How I kind of worked it out in my head, I looked at it in the context of what's going to happen before restoration starts and then what's going to happen during restoration. So the events held before restoration starts, we have this one, obviously, this virtual community meeting, that's today. Then in March of 2025, we are going to have a workshop where we do some visioning for that state lands parcel. As of right now, we're thinking that meeting's probably going to be on the state lands parcel. So you guys can get a flavor of what that looks like before any work is done and help us kind of think through some visioning there. So that's March 2025. And then just before construction, we're looking to have an open house. And that open house would be another in-person meeting. And this would be where we present the final design. We talk about the mitigations that are going to be applied during the construction process, you know, how you can get information, basically kick off the restoration. And then during restoration, we're going to have a series of events as well. We're going to hold 3 mixers, and just FYI, one of them is a trivia night. So I hope you were paying attention because I could be mining this presentation for questions, FYI. There will also be another virtual meeting. I know that not everyone likes to attend things in person. So there will be a virtual meeting held during the restoration process where we'll be providing updates on what we've done and on what's going to be coming up. And then we're going to be looking for 3 tabling opportunities, existing events where we can show up and, talk about the project to people who attend these events. So I mentioned that the LCWA maintains a very active stewardship program, and they do that just generally. That's not necessarily in conjunction with this project. But if you're interested in going out for a walk or for getting your hands dirty or for seeing some birds, definitely check out the LCWA stewardship program. They have several partners, community partners. 2 of them are the Los Cerritos Wetlands Land Trust and also El Dorado Audubon. The Land Trust hosts a guided habitat tour and then a habitat restoration event the first Saturday of every month. And then El Dorado Audubon hosts bird walks. The second Saturday, it's at the Hellman site, which is actually the subject property. The 4th Saturday is Zedler Marsh. And then every Friday and Saturday, there are Zedler Marsh Trail Days sponsored by the LCWA. So if you're looking to get your hands dirty or get out there and do some work, check out the LCWA Stewardship Program. More information about their stewardship program is available on their website, dates, times, things like that. So these are sources for how to stay informed. There's the LCWA website, which is the intoloscerritoswetlands.org. There's the email address. If you are not on the LCWA's email list, send us an email and we can add you. If you have any questions at all moving through this process, send us an email. It'll probably end up going to me, and I will either respond or I will get information or tell you who else to contact for additional information. The LCWA has some social media now. So if you aren't already familiar, give them a follow, primarily on Instagram, and the handle is LCW Authority. So you can stay up to date on we'll be posting things on social media, sending out emails, so be sure and get information from those sources. So that is actually all we have for you today. Are there any additional questions, comments, concerns? Amanda, I think it's now your turn. I've actually forgotten who I spoke with last. I think it was Shelby.
Yeah, I was last
Heather.
one.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, do you want me to read the last one?
Go for it.
We have RL would like to know, when do you see any progress on the upper section?
The upper section, phase 1 or the phase 2, or are you talking about another project?
I think they are asking about the upper Los Cerritos wetlands.
Yeah, I think, okay. In terms of assuming that Eric's right and that his interpretation is that you are referring to the what amounts to the Synergy project, I don't have information for implementation of that. I do know that the LCWA now is the owner of the land around the Steam Shovel Slough. That has changed hands, and it is now owned by the LCWA in exchange for the 5-acre corner piece at Studebaker and 2nd/Westminster. So I know things are starting to happen. But as far as when that will get implemented, that I don't know specifically.
I can give a quick little update on that.
Sure, go for it.
So caveating, saying that project is very much separate from this particular project. This project is being completely implemented. The Southern Los Cerritos Wetlands restoration project is being completely implemented by the Los Cerritos Wetlands Authority with state funding. The Upper Los Cerritos Wetlands project, which we're happy to see move forward, but is not what we're talking about tonight. That is being implemented by the private entity that is pursuing a mitigation bank and also doing the oil consolidation work. One of the things that is happening right now is if you're driving through the area, you may see some efforts going on to actually remove oil wells. So they, along with removing other infrastructure like tank farms and some pipelines, they are actively removing oil wells from that site. Oil wells that have been there, some of them since the 20s and 30s. So very exciting, but that takes a long time, and they have numerous wells and many miles of pipeline that all have to get removed before that restoration can move forward. And they have decided to amend their mitigation bank, which means they have to amend their permits. So there's a bit of a planning effort still for that project. So we hope that they will break ground, but it's been a bit of a race, and I firmly believe the Southern Los Cerritos Wetlands is going to win the race of getting implemented before the Upper Los Cerritos Wetlands.
Eric, I like your optimism. And the tanks are gone. The tanks on Synergy. And that took me a while to figure out. I was getting out of Trader Joe's first at the light there, and I kept staring at the site going, what is different here? Why does this look so different? And then it dawned on me that the tanks are gone. So already that's starting to look better over there. Are there any other comments? Thank you for that, Eric, for that. That was good clarification. Shelby or Amanda, are there any other comments or questions?
There is a comment from William Nash saying that is exciting news.
It is, isn't it? Thank you. I'm glad. I would like to thank you guys all for attending. This is an exciting project. We have a lot moving forward to celebrate and discuss. This is the first major restoration project of the Los Cerritos Wetlands. So this is a good day. This is a good project. I'm really excited to see this implemented moving forward. Are there any closing remarks? Anyone has anything? Eric, you want to share anything? I don't think anyone else. So I think with this, seeing nothing
Actually, it
else,
looks like Barb might have her hand raised.
Thank you, Amanda. Barb, did you have something that you wanted to share?
No, I'm in my car. I just haven't taken it down, so I'm driving. Yeah. Yeah.
Multitasking, I love it. Well, very good. Thank you, Barb. Thank you, Amanda and Shelby, for helping with the chat. That was great. Eric, thank you for your helpful commentary throughout. That's always very informative. And with this, I will conclude the fourth public meeting for the project. Thank you guys all very much for attending, and stay tuned
Heather,
for additional information. Oh, do we have? Oh, we have more. Okay, I can't get out.
Samantha Diaz would just like to know if we can receive a video recording of this meeting.
The meeting is being recorded. Once I figure out where it's stored on my computer, I will be posting it to the LCWA's website. So what's going to go on the LCWA's website is this recording, the PowerPoint presentation, just without me rambling on. The survey link is also going to be there as well. We will be sending out an email when all of that is done. So by the end of this week, early next week at the very latest. So if you're not on the email list, shoot us your email and we'll add you. And if you are, then just stay tuned and you will see when that information has been posted. So I'll try again. Amanda or Shelby, are there any more questions in the chat?
No.
Good.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. I am going to, with this, close the meeting and stop the recording. Thank you very much for attending this public meeting.